Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre or call 465-2511. Your copy and print specialists are waiting to serve you.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Good morning, radio listeners, and welcome to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host, one of your hosts this morning for this week's program. I'm joined by the lovely Yolanda Weeks and the incomparable Devon Cornelius. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning to the listening public.
Good morning, Kevin, and thank you so much for this opportunity yet again to be on Inside the News. I am usually where you are sitting, but you've decided to take that seat for today.
I decided to take that seat today? I didn't think it was my decision. I think it was a joint decision for me to take this seat today. Okay, so guys, for today's program, we are going to talk about some of the most prevalent issues, stories that we covered this week. And we're going to, Lana, how about you tell us what are some of the ones that we're going to cover this episode, this broadcast?
Okay, so this morning we'll be focusing on the anniversaries of two of our major political parties here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Firstly, we will be speaking about the People's Action Movement. They celebrated their 57th anniversary recently, having been established on January 19th, 1965. The party accomplished or achieved quite a lot over the years, which was outlined by the party leader, the Honorable Sean Richards, during the 57th anniversary church service at Antioch Baptist.
But before you get too deep, let's save that juice for when we get into the details. Continue.
So the party would have contributed greatly to St. Kitts and Nevis. And here today we have Mr. Azard Gums, attorney at law and the Assistant Secretary General of the People's Action Movement.
And we'll be speaking with him in a few minutes. Yes. And then we're going to be talking about the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party's their 90th anniversary as well.
church
and we're
service.
going to be speaking with the Deputy Chairman, Dr. Jensen Morrison. He'll be joining us later in the broadcast. The other topics that we decided to touch on were the
Tour operators
and their situation with dispatching issues down at Port Zante concerning cruise ships, as well as the news that the 21 Haitian immigrants that came into Federation are being repatriated at the end of the month. And if time permits, we'll touch on something regionally and internationally as well. Okay, so what are your thoughts, guys, on any of these stories? Which one do you think was the most pressing one during the week?
If I may, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So good morning again, and good morning to all the listeners in Radio Land. Good morning to the lovely people of Basti, St. Kitts, and of course, my lovely home, Charlestown, Nevis. So the most pressing topic for the week, or what I think really made the headlines and what most people were interested in, was the issue with the 21 Haitian illegal migrants. That continues to be a major concern, not just for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but across the Caribbean region, because we have heard of many stories of not just Haitians, but other Caribbean nationals trying to enter other Caribbean islands illegally, and of course other countries internationally. And so this continues to be a concern, and I would say continues to be a concern for the different national security agencies across the world. For this one, people in St. Kitts and Nevis were very much interested, and they wanted to, they were hungry for an update from the authorities as to the status of these Haitian migrants, because we heard of them coming in, I think it was on the 2nd of January of this year. But we never really, you weren't hearing any constant or frequent update. Luckily, at the Premier Matt Brantley, at his press conference on Thursday, he provided an update, and he was the one that revealed that the Haitian immigrants, or migrants rather, would be repatriated to their homeland by the end of this month. So I think that news, for the most part, brought some comfort.
Right. One other thing I thought that we should bring up was the 87th anniversary of the Buckley's Uprising, which was commemorated yesterday afternoon in Buckley's. You guys were on the scene. Can you tell me what you saw there, what was said there when you got to the event?
I think Lana can take the lead on this one.
Okay. The Nyabingi Theocracy, they had a function at the site of the Buckley's estate. There were a lot of what we call rastas there. We had the drums, they had singing, lovely singing. It wasn't attended by a lot of persons, sad to say. But they had their food, drinks, just a few events we saw. They started quite late. We didn't get much out of it. But there was a man in particular who wrote a poem and read it. And he was speaking about a monument being built at that site. And that is something that they are pushing towards.
That has been their push for as long as I can remember, actually, for them to memorialize the uprising in an official capacity.
Yes, and he was asking for persons to pledge at least $1,000 to begin with, and hopefully the authorities will get involved and lend assistance to that.
All right. Well, we are just about quarter past the hour of 11, so we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And then when we return, we will start with our first topic of the day, which is the anniversary of the People's Action Movement with our guest, Azard Gums. Stay tuned.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drug Store's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drug Store's curbside pickup service.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And we're back with Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. It's a lovely Saturday morning, January 29th. And this morning I am joined by Yolanda Weeks and Devon Cornelius. And in studio with us is the Secretary General of the People's Action Movement, Mr. Azard Gums. Good morning, guys, and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning to the hosts for this morning's program, Devon, Yolanda, Kevin. Good morning to those persons listening via radio. I know some persons tune in via the Facebook page as well and other social media outlets. I just want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you for the opportunity that you have extended to the party to have a voice here this morning as we speak about the party's 57th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Before I do so,
Good morning.
morning. Before I do so, I always want to greet persons listening, especially when we're talking about the formation of the party, with the letter that was penned by then Dr. Herbert and Kennedy Simmons. Herbert being the chairman of the party at that time, and Kennedy Simmons, so Kennedy, the secretary. It reads, and it was copied to the administrator and the chief minister on the 19th of January, 1965. It reads, Dear Sir, we the undersigned hereby wish to inform you that a new political movement has been organized in this country. The name of the organization is the People's Action Movement, PAM, and it is our desire and intention to oppose the present government where necessary, with respect to its attitude and approach to numerous unsolved problems of our federation. We sincerely hope that by constructive opposition, we shall render the process of government more democratic, more efficient, and of a lasting benefit to the expanding population of our country. Yours respectfully, William V. Herbert, Chairman, Kennedy Simmons, Secretary. So the People's Action Movement was birthed there and then. We had a number of founding members. We had Richard Keynes, we had Kennedy Simmons, we had Michael Oliver Powell. And so even from my conversations, we had persons even in Old Road, like Mr. King. And so the people came together. And again, based on the letter, you can see that they came together to oppose the government, because at that point in time, you realize that the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party was the dominant party and basically the only party that really stood a chance when it came to the general election. And so the People's Action Movement was birthed out of opposition and out of, a united front. If I am to refer to our 50th anniversary magazine, here we have words from Sir Kennedy. When Sir Kennedy said, "Our 15 years in opposition were difficult years. They were years in which we were tempted in the fire of victimization, injustice, ridicule, false imprisonment, intimidation, and violation of individual rights and freedoms," end of quote. In the same magazine, he goes on to say, "We say thanks to the pioneers of the People's Action Movement led by Dr. William Billy Herbert. He was the leader, the visionary, who brought together people from all walks of life in St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla to launch the new political party in 1965. There were 11 members on the initial organizing committee. Only 4 remain today. And this magazine was done in 2015. At that point in time, we had Mr. Richard Keynes alive. He is now the late Richard Keynes. And so he goes on to talk about the first executive, and in that first executive, Mr. Ralph Gums. And so you had 15 years of opposition after the party had been formed. And if you listen to the stories by those persons before us, because of course I was not alive then, we hear persons talking about rallying together, and at that point in time about high cost in electricity, because then the electricity rate was calculated by the square footage of the household in which you live. So if you lived in a large house, you would be paying more, and it wasn't really based on the consumption of electricity. And so those were the kind of things that birthed the People's Action Movement, to ensure that there was equality, and so to ensure that persons' rights, the rights of the average person, because we realize that the Labour Party tends to say that they are the party for the poor, but we like to say that we are the party for all people, to ensure that there is equality. And before the People's Action Movement, I want you to envision a St. Kitts and Nevis before the governance of the People's Action Movement. You had women who worked for the Labour government. They were fired if they were pregnant and were not married. You had children born out of wedlock, could not carry their father's surname. Workers had to pay almost 50% of their salaries in personal income tax. Women who were pregnant did not get maternity leave. It was illegal to own television sets. Citizens had to pay a death tax on the demise of their loved ones. You could not vote before you reached the age of 21. There was no cable television. Civil servants had to work on Saturday. No severance pay existed. And so this was the reality before the People's Action Movement. And when the People's Action Movement came into existence in 1980, the People's Action Movement, the visionary party that it is, ensured that there were some changes made. And so they looked at the development of St. Kitts and Nevis and how can they develop. And I want to say perhaps their 15 years in opposition was best suited because they were able to realize the areas that were lacking in St. Kitts and Nevis, the areas that needed development. And sometimes you could only see those areas when you sit outside of government. And so those 15 years where the People's Action Movement were contesting elections, though unsuccessful, they were able to see and meet the needs of the individuals, get to see what persons were wanting out of a St. Kitts and Nevis. And so we saw our early childhood education program. Other Caribbean countries sent delegations here in St. Kitts and Nevis to observe and study our program in order to copy it. We look at equal treatment for all children, whatever the circumstances of their birth. 13 weeks maternity leave for women. Non-discrimination against unmarried women in the workplace. The school feeding program. The SELF program to supply textbooks so that the poor would have equal access to learning. The youth skills training and job placement program. Reduction of the voting age from 21 to 18. I know many persons, including myself, could not wait to reach the age of 18 to vote. So imagine if we had an extra 3 years to wait. Some of us will have missed the election in which we first voted. So that is something that is fascinating. We saw the dull season payment to sugar workers, securing the sugar lands for the benefit of present and future generations, and the achievement of the highest level of per capita income growth in the Caribbean and Latin America. And of course, we saw the development of the Southeast Peninsula, Port Zante, all of those things that even up to today benefit our country. We saw the CBI program that was birthed under the People's Action Movement. And so when you think about a visionary party, when you think about a revolutionary party, there could be no other party that comes to my mind than the People's Action Movement. Because from its inception, the people around the party, the people in the party, have always been visionary, revolutionary. And so that is, to me, the party of choice. And that is one reason why I support the People's Action Movement and encourage others to support the People's Action Movement.
If I may?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Azad. And I would say that, the People's Action Movement has indeed contributed to the economic and social development of the country, as, they were in office during that very critical time. And the history is there. So, one can't really deny it. And they must be commended for the work that they have done, and I would say continue to do. As we're here speaking, and as the People's Action Movement is celebrating its 57th anniversary, can you, in a nutshell, give us a brief run through of the activities that you guys had, and any other activities that you have planned for the near future?
Okay, thank you, Devon. Thank you. So we celebrated our anniversary, the 57th anniversary. We started on this Saturday. We had a luncheon with the party leader. National executive was invited, and various persons from the various constituency groups who tend to attend the executive meetings that we have bi-weekly. We then had the church service on the Sunday of that week. We went to the Antioch Baptist Church, and we had a very good time at the Baptist Church, a very fruitful message. And after that, we went to party headquarters, where we partaked in refreshments. On Monday, we had the panel discussion looking at a special membership drive encouraging persons to support the People's Action Movement. We had a panel of 5 individuals, and so those individuals spoke about the People's Action Movement, the past, the present, the future. We had persons like Noel Irish, McClure Taylor, Shermel Drew, Daria Morton, and at the end of it, close to the end, we had a special appearance by our own political leader, the Honorable Sean Richards. So that was also aired live on WINNFM, carried live on WINNFM, and it was aired on our Facebook page, the People's Action Movement, and it was also aired on our YouTube channel, People's Action Movement. On Tuesday, we had what was called Constituency Day. And so the various constituency groups were given the task of coming up with some activity within their constituency, so to meet the need, to show their constituents appreciation. And so we had various constituency groups coming together on that day and doing various activities within their constituency. We know in constituency 1, we had a cleanup of the Newtown Bay Road along the coast. In constituency number 2, we know there were donations of toys to the children home and also a walkthrough with the Honorable Jonel Powell in various areas and his constituency group in various areas in constituency 2. We know in constituency 8, we had the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, who paid visits to a number of sick and shut-in in that constituency. We know in constituency number 4, we had the donation of dispensers to the Virtuous High School, to the Old Road daycare, and also the Challengers daycare. In the afternoon, a walkthrough where the minister and executive members would have distributed calendars and, meet and greet, and of course they would have given him some of their concerns. In constituency 5, we had that constituency group went out in their numbers in their constituency and, handed out different things. In constituency number 6, I think 4 persons were highlighted by the party, given some baskets of appreciation. And so these things happened throughout the time where we celebrated the Constituency Day. And it's something that, we have looked at and something that we are encouraging to do even more, Not that we haven't been doing more in the constituency, but there's always room for improvement and always room to do even more. On the Wednesday, we had the interview with the ministers. We had in the morning at ZIZ, we had the Honorable Sean Richards, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, the Honorable Lindsey Grant at ZIZ speaking about the past, present, and future of the party. Then on that same day at 1:30, at Freedom FM, we had the Honorable Jonel Powell, the Honorable Sean Richards, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, who spoke on the popular show Issues with host Ike. And in the evening, we had a social gathering by the party at PAM headquarters, where persons were invited to come, socialize. We had drinks, we had food, just a festive time, a celebratory time, ending our week of activities on the day of our anniversary, towards the 19th of January.
All right. Thank you so much, Azad, for that. That seemed like a very lengthy and breathy activities list for your 57th anniversary. And thank you so much for coming on our program this morning and sharing with us, the birth of the People's Action Movement, some of the achievements that they've made over the years, as well as how you celebrated this momentous anniversary for your party. We'll take a quick break before we come back with more here on Inside the News on WINNFM 98.9. Our next guest will be Dr. Jensen Morton, Deputy Chair of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, and he'll be talking about their anniversary and activities. Stay tuned.
Shopping with TDC just got much easier. Here's how. Log on to shoptdcgroup.com. Shop at your convenience at any time, from anywhere, with your smartphone, tablet, or computer. with our safe and secure payment checkout. You choose the option to pick up in-store or have your goods delivered right to your door. It's that easy. Shop tdcgroup.com, your one-stop online store.
Shop anywhere, shop anytime, same quality you love. Now online. Shop
www.shoptdcgroup.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
people make the world go People make the world go
And we're back with Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. Thank you to our sponsors, TDC and Carib Brewery, for always supporting our show here on WINNFM. We're back, and we're going to be talking with Dr. Jensen Morton about the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party's 90th anniversary, their achievements, and their celebratory activities. Again, I'm joined with Ilana Weeks and Devon Cornelius. We're acting as a team today. So, good morning, Dr. Morton.
Hello, good morning. And I'd like to say good morning to all of the listeners and viewers on Facebook, on radio, everyone. Good morning, as well as everyone here.
Good morning.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
good morning, good
welcome.
morning.
So, Ilana, lead us off.
Okay, so as Kevin said, and you would agree, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party celebrated its 90th anniversary on
Yes.
January
Titanic.
25
Titanic.
and has a historic past, or a very,
Very much
storied
so.
past, dating back to January 1932.
Very much so.
So we are happy to have you here to share a little bit about the past and bring us up to speed with the
Current.
anniversary celebrations.
All right, no problem. Well, as said, I'm Dr. Jensen Morton. I'm currently the Deputy Chairperson of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party with a specific focus on media and communications. And as you also said, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, it was founded as the Workers' League in 1932, and to date, we are now celebrating our 90th anniversary, making us the oldest continuously active and still active political party in the entirety of the English-speaking Caribbean, and that is right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Oldest, longest, and strongest, right here. So the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party is the party which, if you had to just think about it, they are the ones who are responsible for the development of the St. Kitts and Nevis that you know today. Because for the first era of the Labour Party's existence, there is no entity which currently exists which was in existence at that time. Apart from that, the Labour Party was in power for 3/4 of the entirety of the history of politics with regards to St. Kitts from the days of adult suffrage going forward. So the party's foundation, if you had to think about the history of the party, it would be to I would break it into two parts. Of course, I would call one part the Bradshaw era, if you had to think about it that way, and I would call another part the Dr. Denzil Douglas era. So the Bradshaw era's importance was, in order to really explain it, you'd kind of have to have a little bit of understanding of history and throw your mind back into the time when the party was founded. Now, back in 1932, things were pretty bad in St. Kitts and Nevis. To elaborate how bad things were, just yesterday was the anniversary of Buckley's Rebellion, which took place in 1935. Excuse me. So around that same time, the conditions in which persons had to live in, if you were a black person of working class background, it's nearly unimaginable to think that you owned nothing. The land upon which your house is sitting on, you're paying rent for that. Probably the only thing that you're being allowed to do in terms of work is work on whatever you've been allowed to do, which is working on a sugar estate or something like that. The salaries or the wages, they're so basically, one set of people is controlling everything. They're controlling your land, they're controlling your work, they're controlling what you can do. You don't have much freedom in terms of growth, you don't have much freedom in terms of development. And the wages were so low that it spurred unrest, not just in St. Kitts, but region-wide. The Moyne Commission, which was organized by the United Kingdom in 1938 to take a look at how come, these colonies are rebelling like this. The report was so bad that if you could think about it, remember 1938 was around just before World War II. The report was so bad that they withheld it until World War II was finished because they were afraid that if the report was known by the persons in the West Indies, including in St. Kitts, if they knew how bad they were or how badly off they were compared to the rest of the world, they would never assist Britain with that war that was going on. So that report didn't get released until 1945. It revealed that the Caribbean was one of the poorest parts of the entire planet, and St. Kitts and Nevis was one of the poorest parts of that poorest part. And from that, the Labour Party was birthed. Now, when I say poorest part, you have to understand what I'm trying to talk about. There was money in St. Kitts, but the income disparity was so staggering that black persons of working class background, those persons had practically nothing. And from that desperation to get some form of elevation, that was when the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party was founded. Now, when you now have that background, you can now think about what the Labour Party was trying to achieve in that first part. The main thing that they were trying to do was they were trying to see how can we bridge this gap that exists between working class and the elite persons. And step by step, when you see what Robert Bradshaw and his team, what they did, it's nearly, when you read about it, it's supposed to bring a tingle to you, no matter who you are. They start off by realizing that one of the things that's holding people back would be their education. So, universal secondary education was launched in 1966. Maybe persons don't know this, but St. Kitts was the very first place to launch universal secondary education in the entirety of the British West Indies. That was a vision. That is true vision, and that was a vision which was started by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party for the first in the just if you have to think about it, it was something which was deemed impossible. They all thought that in order to go to school, you have to pay this high fee, and if you came from a working class family, it's nearly not full blown impossible, but it's nearly impossible to afford it unless you have some kind of financial assistance. But they came up and said, and just think about it, the whole region is like that. So nobody else knows anything different. But those of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party were able to think, realize that this cannot continue. negotiate what they had to negotiate, and they launched that. That was in 1966. Now, apart from that, even something else which people take for granted, something like a secondary school in the rural areas. I know most people don't think of it as a big deal. You're like, well, if you're from Sandy Point, of course, Sandy Point would have a school. That was not the reality. The first rural high school to ever open in the British West Indies was what we now call the Charles E. Mills Secondary School. That was pioneered by the same man it was named after, Charles E. Mills, along with, I'll just call Charles E. Mills for now. It was pioneered by Charles E. Mills. And what hurt a little bit, the reason why I try to educate people as much as I can about these things is that it was something which it was information that I was not privy to whilst I was in St. Kitts. I do have a first degree in history and biochemistry before I did medicine. And that was when I was in Trinidad. And whilst I was doing West Indian history in Trinidad, the history teacher, she's talking and she's hyping up St. Kitts and Charles E. Mills. I was like, well, I didn't know this. And I'm learning this in Trinidad. And that's when I started to call home and get a little bit more information. And the ironic thing was that months after I learned this in Trinidad, that was when they were naming Sandy Point High School after Charles E. Mills, and people were protesting. And I was like, protesting? Why? Because Charles E. Mills was involved in politics, and it became a political thing. But I was like, if you only knew that this man is responsible for the existence of the high school, and it was the first time, it was the first one in the entirety of the British West Indies. All of the other times, if you wanted to get secondary education, you had to go to some big city or some big town, either the capital or something like that. The first time something was thrown out there outside of that kind of jurisdiction was here. And then from there, the rest just started to spring on. Now, after improving the access to secondary education, that was one of the main things that was able to, like I say, bridge that gap between rich and poor, because they realized that education is a very powerful tool. But then something that's also a powerful tool is healthcare. So they insisted, well, many people wouldn't know this, but healthcare in St. Kitts was actually very bad before. If you look in the same Moyne Commission, one of the world's highest syphilis rates was actually here. It sounds kind of bad, but we had lots of diseases that were running rampant in St. Kitts and Nevis. Our infant mortality was very high, life expectancy was very low. So one of the things that they realized was that in order for the people to develop, you have to be healthy. If you're healthy and you don't have the burdens of having not just chronic disease, but also infectious disease, that is one of the ways in which your populace can really grow and genuinely develop. So health centers were established all over the island, and even the hospital placement was done in a specific way such that the Circle Island main road is 30 miles, each hospital is 10 miles from each other. All of that was orchestrated in collaboration with donations from some very important and prominent families, but that was established again by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Then it continued with slum clearance and improvement with regards to the housing situation for many people. It was lots of the basic rights with regards to workers' rights with regards to, this part isn't my strong suit, but it's more so workers' rights with regards to severance pay, the establishment of severance pay under specific circumstances, and a few other things. Those things were started at that time. And in the era leading up to 1980, the visionary that was Robert Bratche, he was there trying to establish everything and put everything in place such that when St. Kitts and Nevis would be able to declare its independence, that this nation would genuinely be a strong nation, despite its size, a strong nation that can stand on its own 2 feet. And as all of the bricks were being laid and all of the foundations were being laid, unfortunately, he passed away in 1978. And then C.A. Paul Southwell, who took over, passed away in 1979. And then when we had elections in 1980, unfortunately, that was when the Labour Party lost power. So even though independence was declared in 1983, Dr. Kennedy Simmons, he was our first prime minister because he was sworn into office in 1983. Persons call Robert Bratche the father of the nation, and most people that know about it, they call him the father of independence because they know that he was the one that had the vision and put everything was there. And the ironic thing was that the platform on which they lost in 1980 by the People's Action Movement was an anti-independence platform. That was the ironic thing. And then after they came and they say everything is in place, basically they said, but it might as well. And some other things took place, which I wouldn't get into because I would make this way too long. Now, when the Labour Party got back into power in 1995, that starts the second wave, or the second era. The Douglas era is what, or the era championed by Dr. Douglas is what I would call it. So the Labour Party, if you look at it, their main goal is improving the lives and livelihoods of the masses of St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, everyone, there's equality with regards to the distribution of everything, but you always have to help out the most vulnerable persons as your top priority. That's why, for example, you have movements like Black Lives Matter, and people say, well, everybody matters. But they say, no, if one particular group is suffering right now, let's focus on that group that's suffering. And then after that, after we get that group up on their feet, that is when we can once again think about genuine across-the-board treatments of certain things. So bearing that in mind, when Denzel Douglas took power, and the Labour Party, took power in 1995, we still had some issues with regards to income disparity. We still had some poor people. We still had an underclass. There were still persons that were living in cyclic poverty. And the focus was, okay, so how do we improve the quality of life of these persons? And everything which step by step was done was to continue that kind of trend-setting path. So the first thing goes back to the basics, education. Even though secondary education, etc., is free, it became a reality that tertiary education was now something which was absolutely needed. The only thing that was available were a few sporadic scholarships at the time, apart from the state scholarship which was given out. So with Cuba coming on stream, St. Kitts and Nevis went full speed ahead with regards to expanding the Cuban scholarship program, which before there were very few people that were given the opportunity and that were going to Cuba for an education. That was, like I said, expanded to as much as the government saw it affordable. Taiwan was also present, and of course the scholarship program in Taiwan, it saw itself being opened and actually expanded. It was something which was negotiated, not just from St. Kitts and Nevis, but quite a few other countries. And they came together, they negotiated it, and now you have another option in which you could get free tertiary education. But that wasn't all. It was realized that some persons, they would not be able to get educated in Cuba or Taiwan, but they would still desire an education. Maybe to go to the States, maybe Canada, maybe the United Kingdom, but it was nearly impossible at that time because for you to go off to study when your parents have nothing, you would need a loan. And in order to get a loan, you're going to need to put up something, you're going to need collateral. And that came hand in hand with something else with regards to the development of people, which I must speak about, and that was the housing revolution. So you have to put yourself in the perspective. A lot of St. Kitts people take housing for granted now, believe it or not. But if you had to just think back just a few years, just one generation back, the reality of the situation was that genuine house ownership and land ownership, it was a scarcity. It was something that was, it was a scarcity. And first of all, the Housing Corporation was started under the Labour Party, but the expansion with regards to opening housing projects, every single village, every single constituency, you're seeing houses go down. The money was found wherever it had to be found, just so that enough persons would be able to get the housing that they need. Now, not only does giving you a home assist you with regards to you being able to have a roof over your head and own a piece of the rock, but importantly, that home, which is in your name, you can now use it when you go to the bank as the collateral for you to study. So now, lots of single mothers owned their first home thanks to the Labour Party. And those single mothers, after they got this home, they now, with their oldest child, if the oldest child wanted to study, they could now put up the house for the oldest child to be able to study. So you had something that you could put up. That was impossible before because so few persons had access to government housing before. The housing schemes were not exceptionally well done, if you had to think about it that way. And the sheer volume of houses. Oh, pardon? Oh, sorry, I thought you were stopping me. The sheer volume of houses which the Labour Party built, it is still historic. It is unmatched anywhere in this hemisphere. Literally, there's nowhere else that had that magnitude of let me be specific, that magnitude of that type of government-assisted housing with regards to being able to own a home. They have some countries that have like lots of apartments and stuff, but in terms of home ownership, there's nowhere else on this side of the world that has anything close to that scale. And like I said, some think it's people that take it for granted and they just think that a house is just a house and government should give me a house, etc. But everything was done strategically. Oh.
Right.
Oh,
But
sorry.
Dr. Morton, not to cut you off, sorry, but just
Yes.
before we wrap up, I wanted to get
wrap
from
up.
you.
I hadn't even started.
It's
It's
almost 12 o'clock, so we're going to break for
Yeah,
the
we
12 o'clock
wanted
news
to get
soon.
from you. We wanted to get from you, if you can, in a nutshell, briefly, tell us about some of the activities for the 90th anniversary.
Okay, no problem. I guess I'll have to come back another time and finish because I am like 10% complete.
Well,
But
if
it's
that's the
okay.
case, then yes, you might need to come back and go in depth.
No problem. So for the upcoming year, for our 90th anniversary, we have activities planned for every single month. Every single month has a different theme as the over encapsulating body for the month. So for the upcoming month, which is February, the theme for that month is Labor Love. And we start on the 1st of February with the launch of the Labor Love campaign. You'll get a little bit more information about that in a few days' time. It's a bit of a surprise. But apart from that, we have a constituency drive-through. We are trying to ensure that the activities that we do, that they comply with the COVID protocols and some other limitations until if those are lifted. But there's a constituency drive-through. We're also going to start our lecture series. The goal is such that at least once a month or every other month, we're going to have lectures on different topics with regards to issues of national development and also other issues that are of importance. The Labour leaders' inauguration, as you guys would know, the other thing that's historic about the Labour Party right now is that we have elected a new leader in the person of Dr. Terence Drew. He was elected in November, and his official inauguration, it's going to take place in February as the culmination of the Labor Love Month, and that's the month of February. For the month of March, the theme for the month of March is about education, or what we call the edification. We're going to start the 90 for 90 quiz launch. It's 90 questions, 90 prizes distributed. It starts in March. It might extend a little bit beyond that, but that's the start of that campaign. And of course, we come to life in May when we have our Labour Weekend, which actually starts at the end of April. That's when we're going to have our Miss Labour Queen pageant, our 90th anniversary Calypso show, our Barefoot Beach Festival. We're going to have an exhibition and photo gallery expo. Of course, the other things, including our national conference, etc., would also take place in May. And I just realized that I skipped April. In April, we are going to have Comrades Fun Day, or National Sports Day. We're going to have our annual party on Easter Monday, the Easter Monday Fete Sol Rojo. More information on that to come, and quite a few other things. It's a packed calendar.
It seems like you have quite a calendar. We can spend the entire day going through it.
You can send that to us via our email. I'll give you after.
Okay, no problem.
And then possibly, as more of the events come forward, we can have you guys come back and speak about them again.
No problem.
But it seems like the Labour Party has a lot in store for their 90th anniversary this year, and we are going to stay tuned to hear what's going on.
Dr. Drew did say that it will be a year-long affair.
Yes,
right?
yes, definitely. We have a lot of energy, lots of well, even though we're an old party, we have a lot of new energy right now. It's a new executive, lots of younger people. So we are just here waiting to show the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis all that we are about.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Morton, for joining us here on Inside the News this Saturday morning. We're going to wrap up in about 2 minutes to take a break for the headline news. But before, closing thoughts from Devon and Yolanda?
It was nice
Sure,
to
go
have
ahead,
you
Anna.
here.
No problem.
Who's first, me or you, Devon?
Go ahead, Yolanda.
Go ahead, Nana, go ahead.
It's nice to have you here. It's nice to meet you.
Oh, no problem.
And you gave us quite a lot of information and things that I have never heard about in my entire life. And we should reach out to you sometime to get a little bit more in-depth detail.
There's a whole book. There's a whole book
about the Sinkis Nevis, the Labour Party, etc. So it
No problem.
was nice having you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Devon?
And yes, and thank you so much, Dr. Moulton, for accepting the invitation and to come in absence of Dr. Drew.
No problem.
But yes, I too would like to congratulate the Sinkis Nevis Labour Party on their 90th anniversary. And I think they too have indeed contributed significantly to the overall development of the country. I mean, the information is there, so we really and truly, and to be fair, we can't deny it. So again, congratulations to the Labour Party, and we look forward to the anniversary activities and more coming from the Labour Party.
All right, great. So it's just about 12 o'clock, so we're going to break for the midday news here on WINNFM 98.9. You are listening to Inside the News with Kevon Brown, Yolanda Weeks, and Devon Cornelius. We'll be back after the midday news to speak about the other two stories that we were talking about, the repatriation of the 21 Haitian immigrants that came earlier this year, as well as the issue with the tour operators. So please stay tuned to WINNFM 98.9.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and National Bank.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your national bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. With a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With the WIN headline news, I am Devon Cornelius.
And I am Yolanda Weeks.
And I am Kevon Brown.
Making the headlines.
A better flow of work to tour operators on the horizon. Barbados' Attorney General warns the Democratic Labour Party to accept Senate seats. Trinidad and Tobago launches Carnival 2022. Cost of living rising in UK.
The details and more straight ahead.
Tour operators on St. Kitts may soon become more comfortable in applying their trade at the Port Zante cruise port, following discussions held with tourism officials. The meeting was attended by the presidents and executives of the taxi associations, cooperative as well as 5 dispatchers. The chair of the meeting was the new Product Development Officer in the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Golda Franks. During WIN-FM's Voices program on Friday, January 28, Sylvester Socrates Hodge said he was present at the meeting and shared the details of the discussion.
Discussions were centered around dispatching protocols that would facilitate a better flow of work to taxi operators at the dispatching point. Some fair adjustments were discussed, but will have to be sanctioned by the Tourism Authority before being made public. While in the meeting, Minister Grant joined us briefly to share what he described as some good news against the backdrop of losing some 32 port calls / ship cancellations due to thresholds set by the government for the percentage of COVID cases on the ships that would determine them being permitted to berth or not. The threshold was set at 1% of the passenger count on board. It has now been increased to 2%. This will result in less cancellations, but also the possibility of increasing the chance of more potential spread.
This discussion came at the backdrop of planned protests, complaints and frustration expressed by tour operators, having experienced reduced bookings and dispatch strategies which they claimed was only to the benefit of a minority of the transport group. Meanwhile, Socrates suggests that proper management be taken into consideration when the new dispatch strategies come into effect, citing that cruise passengers will be allowed to travel the length and breadth of the country and nobody knows their status. He mentioned, however, that individuals should adhere to the non-pharmaceutical measures.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Mark Brantley, is commenting on the resignation of the President of Armenia, Armen Sarkisian, following allegations that surfaced about him holding citizenship for St. Kitts and Nevis.
I don't have much I can say about the Armenian president resigning. That story seems still a bit murky. Nothing has come to us formally in relation to that. And if it is that he saw value in the St. Kitts Nevis passport, then it means that even in Armenia, people are clamoring to get the St. Kitts Nevis citizenship. So that perhaps is a good thing.
Repeated calls to the CBI unit for a comment on the matter by its Chief Executive Officer Les Khan were unsuccessful. The Investment Migration Insider, in an article on Tuesday, January 25th, reported that Sarkisian resigned from his post on Sunday, a position he held for 4 years. In a recorded video message posted on the president's official website, Sarkisian offered a diffuse explanation for his departure. Quote, "At this difficult time for our nation, when national unity is needed, the institution of the president should not be the object of gossip and conspiracy theories, hereby diverting public attention from the most important issues," end quote, Sarkisian stated in his video. Armenian investigative publication HETQ Online, however, which has been in direct contact with Sarkisian, claims the actual notice behind the ex-president's decision was that he was a dual citizen at the time of becoming president and that this had come to light. Armenia's constitution prohibits individuals who have held citizenships other than the Armenian for the preceding 6 years from occupying the office of the president. Sarkisian's entire presidency, therefore, has in effect been illegitimate, the article read. HETQ, which had obtained details of Sarkisian's Kyrgyzstan passport, contacted the ex-president to ask for an explanation. Sarkisian said he had investments in St. Kitts and Nevis. According to correspondence with Armen Sarkisian, he had a share in one of the hotels in St. Kitts and Nevis transferred onto one of his family members before he became ambassador of Armenia to the UK in 2013. St. Kitts and Nevis has a CBI program whereby people can be granted citizenship in return for making investments. Sarkisian claimed that he thus became a citizen without his knowledge. Quote, "The investment was the driving factor. I was not interested in the passport at all," end quote, he told HETQ. The president further told HETQ that upon receiving the passport, he had written to the CBI service provider asking that his citizenship be put on hold and that prior to his appointment as ambassador of Armenia to the UK, he had instructed his solicitor to return his passport to St. Kitts and Nevis. 4 years later, shortly before becoming president, Sarkisian claims he discovered that his instructions to return the passport had not been followed because the person charged with the task, a senior executive with the CBI firm he had employed, had since died. Sarkisian appears uncertain as to whether he is still a Kyrgyzstan. Sarkisian said he believed he was no longer a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis from the moment he requested to put his citizenship on hold after he received it in return for investments, the article further read.
In regional news,
Barbados' Attorney General warns the Democratic Labour Party to accept Senate seats. Barbados Today has the details.
The Democratic Labour Party is being warned against allowing the silliness of the past election campaign to deny them representation in the Senate. Attorney General Dale Marshall said in an interview with Barbados Today that the newly elected government has no intention of selecting opposition senators. He said the administration was seeking to ensure beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 2 Senate seats are chosen by the DLP.
I am amused really by the mouthings of the interim president of the Democratic Labour Party, because in order for them to benefit from what the Prime Minister is proposing, they have to sit down and have a discussion with the government, because it would require an amendment to the Constitution. Simple as that. The Constitution to this extent does not tell the President how to appoint or what interests need to be appointed. So really, it behooves the opposition to stand down a little bit and listen, because the Constitution will have to be amended so as to say that the 2 quote-unquote opposition senators must only too well that it is the appointment that is made by the president. We're not saying we will appoint anybody. That's a matter for the president. But what we're seeking to do is to establish certain parameters as to how she should exercise that discretion.
4 more COVID-19 deaths and more than 400 new cases of the virus were recorded in the past 24 hours as the country continues to grapple with what appears to be the fast-spreading Omicron variant of COVID-19. Of the 4 latest deaths, 1 person was fully vaccinated, while the vaccination status for 2 persons was unknown, and the 4th person was unvaccinated. With the number of new infections still increasing steadily, the number of COVID-19 infections recorded since the 1st of January is nearing the 20,000 mark. It is the highest number of new infections recorded in a single month, and more than 3 times higher than the previous highest figure in a single month.
Well, right now we have 12,357 cases that are active, and over the last 24 hours we would have recorded another 382 new cases. In terms of hospitalization, we have 157 persons in hospitals, and of those, 103 are currently at the Ocean View Hospital with
Trinidad and Tobago launches Carnival 2022. TTT News tells us more.
Carnival 2022 has been launched on the home of Carnival, the TTT network. The launch took place today. The network's radio frequencies, Sweet 100.1, Next 99.1, and Talk City 91.1 FM, have been leading the way in ensuring the season will be a vibrant one. Terry Ann Brown Campbell has more.
The 2022 Carnival season got off to a lively start with the first Fantastic Friday rolling out on TTT's Now Morning Show. TTT Limited CEO David Roberts says the network will offer the essence of Carnival.
Viewers and listeners can stay very, very close to the TTT Limited network for the best possible experiences for Carnival. Of course, we've already made public our partnership with the Chutney Soca Monarch for Carnival 2022. We've also already launched Give Me a Song, and we have so many more pieces of entertainment to come.
And some of this entertainment will include the latest music for the season.
The city of soca, where everything soca, we went 100% soca, seeing that artists have been releasing as of late of 2021, and we had a lot of artists calling with requests of releasing on Boxing Day.
New Year's Day on Sweet 100 saw the rollout of their groovy soca sing-off competition featuring new and rising artists.
And we have 16 persons so far in our whom are moving forward to our semi-final round. And that semi-final round takes place on the 12th of February, and our grand final takes place on the 28th of February.
While we wait for the official list of Carnival events, CEO David Roberts reminds that TTT is also media partner to the National Carnival Commission.
I invite you to join us on air at TTT, on our website ttt.live, or at TTT Live Online on YouTube and Facebook. This is Carnival 2022. Carnival lives, it's in we blood, never forget.
Terry Ann Brown Campbell, TTT News.
We now bring you these international reports.
The cost of living in the UK is rising, and it's changing people's lives.
We either have to eat and be cold, or be warm and starve. That's the way it is.
All evidence suggests this is just the start.
The squeeze on household incomes is going to be the big story of 2022, particularly the first half of it, and it is going to be on a scale of the kind that we do see in some recessions.
And this is what's happening already. High inflation. Consumer prices rose 5.4% in the 12 months to December last year. That's the highest rate in nearly 30 years. Energy and food prices are the main drivers of this, but there are other factors too, like tax rises and changes to benefits. All of this is affecting the cost of living, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson acknowledges the situation.
I understand how
difficult it is for people. I understand the pressures that people are facing on their on household finances.
To explain that pressure, the UK government is also saying this.
This is a global phenomenon because the causes of inflation, whether it's supply chains or energy prices, are of course global in nature.
Inflation is a global issue right now. We can see that in many Western economies. In the US, consumer price inflation is 7%. In Germany, it's 5.3%. And what is global in nature is personal in its consequences, especially in winter.
The heating is switched off and just put on occasionally when it's particularly cold.
Is that because of the rising prices?
Because of the rising prices.
And those energy prices are rising primarily because the wholesale cost of gas has gone up. That has happened because global gas supplies are down. And there are several reasons for that. First, Europe was unusually cold last winter. That meant a lot of stored gas was used up. Second, replenishing those stores was made harder by low wind speeds. That meant less wind power, and so more gas had to be burned to make electricity. The third reason is there was more demand for gas from Asia, and particularly from China. Prices up for gas, prices are up for petrol and diesel too. Official figures show an increase of over 20% in 12 months. The main reason here, well, that's the increase in the price of crude oil. And that increase is being driven by demand from countries as they open up after COVID restrictions. So that's petrol and gas. The next thing we need to look at is food prices, because they're rising too. And the cooking campaigner Jack Monroe argues the official inflation figure underestimates the impact on the poorest people.
I did a £10 food shop in 2012 for the Sunday people. And I redid exactly the same food shop last weekend and it came to £17.11.
The reasons for the rise in food prices are numerous. Among them are supply chain problems and labour shortages caused by COVID and in part by Brexit. And there are other pressures on the cost of living too. Some people will pay more income tax this year, and there's the removal of the temporary increase of the universal credit benefit. And in addition to all of that, wages aren't keeping up.
It's not so much that pay hasn't grown, it's that the cost of living has increased by more than that. So the amount that you can actually buy with your pay packet is going down.
For all of these reasons, the cost of living is getting harder, and there's more to come. The Resolution Foundation think tank describes 2022 as the year of the squeeze. It goes on. The peak of the squeeze will be in April, as families face a £1,200 income hit from soaring energy bills and tax rises. April is crucial. National insurance contributions will rise by 1.25 percentage points. The government says this is to fund social care and the NHS. That rise will mean people earning £20,000 will pay an extra £130 per year. Those earning £50,000, they'll pay £505 more. And if that's tax, then there's energy.
We are going to see an enormous rise in the energy price cap. It's the biggest that there's ever been in the price cap kind of history, and it will amount to something like £60 a month for customers, and that's immediately from April.
The energy price cap is a limit on some domestic gas and electricity tariffs, and that cap is expected to rise by up to 50%. And while there are calls to mitigate this, as the Financial Times notes, decisions are due soon. All potential solutions are difficult and expensive, and here are some of them. The opposition Labour Party wants to do this.
I want to cut that VAT on gas and electricity bills because it will save people £100 a year on their bills.
But as Faisal Islam points out, a cut in VAT saves 5% or £95 off a £1,900 predicted bill. This might prove a helpful addition, Faisal says, but will not fundamentally alter the picture. Another option, supported by some Conservatives, is scrapping the planned rise in national insurance. Here's the former Brexit Minister Lord Frost saying, given the new pressures on energy prices and inflation, it's even more important now to scrap these tax increases and focus on getting the economy growing again. At the moment, though, the government's plan for that tax rise remains in place, and it argues it is offering people help.
The national living wage is going to go up in the spring. That's going to put an extra £1,000 in millions of people's pockets. We also cut the universal credit taper rate. That's cutting taxes for those on the lowest incomes.
But as April approaches, the government is facing pressure to take further decisions. And as it wrestles with what to do about the rising cost of living, so too are many families.
we were hoping that this year was going to be the year when we can, get back out and go on holiday and stuff. And if these price hikes are going to continue, I don't think that's going to be an option, unfortunately.
You are listening to the WINNFM Headline News. Let's recap our top stories.
A better flow of work to tour operators on the horizon. Barbados' Attorney General warns the Democratic Labour Party to accept Senate seats. Trinidad and Tobago launches Carnival 2022. Cost of living rising in UK.
Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and National Bank.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoy the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tilly Wall with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Did you know that National Bank offers very favorable terms and low interest rate to switch your home mortgage? Our in-house legal department will process your mortgage in a jiffy and free of cost. Switch your home mortgage now and get a peace of mind knowing that we are here for you. National Bank, always here.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is WIN FM.
People make the world go
TDC Financial Services. We're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services. We are strong. TDC Financial Services. This is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Good afternoon, and welcome back to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host this afternoon, Kevon Brown, and I'm joined with Yolana Weeks and Devon Cornelius. Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon, Kevon. Good afternoon, Devon.
Good afternoon, Kevin. Good afternoon, Yolanda.
So we're gonna continue our show. For this morning's half, we had Azad Gums from the People's Action Movement talking about their 57th anniversary and their celebrations, and he went through just a few of the achievements of the People's Action Movement over the years. And then we had Dr. Jensen Morton, the deputy chairman of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, and he spoke of the 90th anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, some of their activities, because they're going to have a year-long string of activities to celebrate the momentous 90th anniversary for that party. And this afternoon we're going to continue looking into some of these stories that were covered during the week. So, where are we starting, guys?
Well, if I may, we spoke briefly earlier on the issue with the illegal Haitian migrants that came to Nevis. I think they both ran aground and in the back village area in Nevis on the 2nd of January. And as I said, that sparked a lot of public debate and public concern and speculation from people as to why they came and what was the reason. You know, you had people who are what I say, geological experts who are saying, well, how did they get here if they were intended to go somewhere else? Because I think what they were saying, or what was reported, was that they intended to go to the USVI. And if you look at it from a geological standpoint, it you know, you would question it.
Well,
So
maybe
it was
maybe they ran
Go
into
ahead.
some navigational issues. You never know. The seas are
That could be.
they're rough. But before we get too deep into it, let's get some context a little bit. As Devon rightly said, it happened on the 2nd of January. They ran aground in Bath Village. There were 21 Haitians. All of them have been detained. I think they're at being housed at Potworks. And they are to be repatriated on the 31st, so that should be Monday. Additionally, there were some charges that were made to two Dominicans for illegal entry as well. There are two Haitian residents of St. Kitts who were charged with harboring the illegal immigrants, and then we had 4 St. Kitts and Nevis nationals who were also charged with harboring the illegal immigrants. So that's just a little background. Now we could dive deep into the other issues, like why do we think so many Haitians are migrating out of Haiti?
Well, if I may, Kevin, Haiti has long been plagued with a number of issues, political tensions, climate and environmental issues, poverty, crime and violence, and the list goes on. And so it's just like when you are in an environment and you're not getting the treatment that you would like, you would do everything in your power to get out of that situation, if you really care and love for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the Haitians and other illegal migrants are doing is that they're in search of greener pastures. They're in search of a better life. They are in search of making, or working towards a better future, not just for themselves, but for their children. So I think for the most part, that is the intention right there. But as I did some time ago, and I will stress again, there are processes and there's a procedure to all of this. I know it is easier said than done.
Yeah, that
But
definitely
if
is
we
true.
have to be fair, if we have to be fair, you can't enter someone's country illegally. It can't be a free for all.
Well, I mean, if you think about the part just last year alone, if you think about just last year alone, we had the assassination of the president in July, which was just rife with controversy and hearsay and this that, and we're still trying to figure out what's going on in that regard. A month later, they had a 7.2 earthquake on August 14th. Some 2,000 people died, thousands of others injured, hundreds of thousands of buildings damaged or destroyed. And then 2 days after that, they got hit by Tropical Depression Grace. And then now, over the last week, I think they had several aftershocks. The same South Peninsula of Port-au-Prince, below Port-au-Prince, where not the two other aftershocks that came right after the other that ended up with two people dying. I think
There was also a blast, Kevon.
right, the
Yes.
blast with the gas tanker. They were trying to get fuel because economic situations are down. So a fuel tanker had an accident. Fuel was pouring out. They saw the opportunity to fill up their gas tank so that they can be warm, they can eat, they can move vehicles, they can make a living, and bam, the gas tank blew up. And so, I mean, it's kind of understandable why they would want to get out as soon as possible. Don't you think?
I do, and I'll say this much. Um, there's a saying, and we all know it. Who in the kitchen feel the heat, right?
Indeed.
Who in the kitchen feel the heat. So I'm imagining for a moment, what if we were
In the same situation.
in the same situation? What would we do as citizens and divisions? Because quite frankly, I believe the majority, if we were in their situation, we would be clamoring and clamoring to get out of the country,
Mm-hmm. I
whether
agree.
it is legally or illegally. So it is. I think it's more of a human nature or a human instinct. But
Mm-hmm.
it raises questions. It would raise questions. Sorry, um, as to what efforts are being made. When the premier made the announcement or revealed that they will be repatriated, he did indicate that they did their best to see how best they can accommodate them. But because of the current COVID-19 situation, we are already struggling with our own people, and so they faced some challenges in terms of having to take these additional persons, um, you know, within our social safety nets. And the decision to repatriate them was made by the National Security Ministry in St. Kitts. But, back to my point, what would we do as Kittitians and Nivisions if we were in there in the kitchen right now?
Yolanda, what about you? You are a mother. What's your take on this?
I definitely would want to get away. I just thinking about the crime, violence, kidnappings, poverty. Every mother want to ensure that their child is well clothed and well fed. So I would definitely want to get away, and I sympathize with them. I understand, and I am one of those persons who's an advocate for these people getting assistance. From the CARICOM standpoint, we hear a lot of talk about helping them every time something happens. But then, after a little while, the talk died down and nothing.
That's a very good point that you raised there. I think I saw a comment on online some time ago emphasizing that Haiti is a part of CARICOM, and sometimes it feels like they are not treated as such. We would lend assistance when a natural disaster happens, but after we feel like that natural disaster has run its course, we go back to ignoring them essentially.
That's true.
What I would say to that, guys, I would say, without saying too much or even knowing enough, I think it is more than that.
Probably is.
Because, there's a lot going on in Haiti. I've never been there, so I can't really talk like I've been there and I know exactly what's happening. But through the reports that we have seen, there's a lot going on in Haiti. And I don't even know how to approach this. But just to say that there's a lot going on in Haiti.
From
right
the
now,
head
and
down.
Yeah, it's all over the place. I mean, from the assassination of their president, I mean, who would feel safe? Who would feel safe? The frequent kidnappings and all of these things. And so, while we would raise the question, or while the question continues to be raised as to what is CARICOM doing, perhaps we can also ask, how much can CARICOM do? That's my question. Your thoughts?
That's you stop me right there, Devon, and that's a good question because they're gonna need a lot of resources pumped into that country in order to get them to the position that I think the masses want to be financially.
Right, yeah.
It's an interesting perspective because when you think about other countries around the globe that have similar situations where there's corruption, where there's strife, where there's constant natural disasters, etc., while they aren't perfect, there are options where some people seek asylum, some people are entered into refugee camps in various countries. But I raise you another question. Can CARICOM actually afford or is capable of providing refuge for Haitians in need of such?
Are we willing?
Or are we willing?
Well, remember at the end of the day, CARICOM is not just the office or the headquarters, or the working space. CARICOM is us, the different countries that make up that organization. So, in terms of, I think what would have to be done is to pool your resources, So, Sinkis and Nevis, whoever, you say, guys, we're going to have to make a concerted effort to assist our brothers and sisters in Haiti, and this is what we're going to do. So it cannot be at all where one country has to take that responsibility. It has to be, all of them coming together and saying, this is what we're going to do.
Well, but various institutions do help out in
yes,
PAHO, the OECS, CARICOM, as we said, the United Nations and various others regionally and internationally do help out in times of need. It's just, I guess, it's the long-term help that is needed rather than the short-term, right after disaster help that we're talking about.
That is true. And at the same time, I think they are probably looking at the whole aspects of the crime and violence. They're not knowing who is who coming into their country.
I agree with you, Lana. I mean, that too is a
That is a big deal.
For all the national security ministries across the Caribbean, because it is easy for us to say, hey, let's take them. But you don't know their profile. You don't know, not to judge anybody, don't get me wrong, but, from a national security standpoint, you
That
got to
would
be
be one of the
realistic,
major issues.
You have to weigh the risks.
Yes.
But guys, I'm leaving you guys shortly as I have to attend a funeral. But yeah, I just wanted to put in those few words, and I'm just waiting for my lift to take me there.
Okay. That's absolutely no problem. It's 1:45, so we are going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
People make the world go
Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre or call 465-2511. Your copy and print specialists are waiting to serve you.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go People make the world go
And we're back with Inside the News here on WINFM 98.9. Devon was with us just recently, but as he mentioned, he had a prior engagement to go to, and so it's just you and I now, Yolana. Hi.
Yes, Kevin. Oh my goodness. So what an afternoon without Devon, huh? It's just me and you today. We'll definitely miss him this afternoon, but person should call in and lend in the conversation with us.
Absolutely. The numbers to call are 466-0989, 662-0989, and 762-0989 to weigh in on the conversation. Previous to the break, we were talking about the Haitian situation, migration, a great migration indeed, because they've not just been migrating throughout the Caribbean, but they've been migrating throughout Central America and America as well. But we have a caller. Caller, you're live on Inside the News. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I listened to your program this morning with the representatives from the two parties.
Yes.
And it was interesting to hear them being count their accomplishments, right? But there's no party in St. Kitts, not PAM, not PLP, not CCM, not NRP, not Unity, if you want to call it a party, that has done more transformational change than the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. None. Not even close. Right? All administrations have contributed, no question. But when it comes to foundational changes, fundamental changes, most of these occurred under Labour. Universal adult suffrage, the transformation of health and education and housing, things like the refurbishment of the airport in 1993. Before that, there were the building of the runway, okay, which jump-started everything. Similarly, before Port Sante, there was the deep water port that Labour built, right? That's when cruise started. I remember ships like Song of America and the Cunard berthing there, okay? That is how developments work. Port Zante had to be rebuilt twice, okay? It was only after the build-out by Labour that it became such a powerhouse in our economy. That is how development works, okay? And that is why we today are enjoying the fruits of all that foundational development. We have had good, steady growth under all administrations since independence, and the contributions of all parties should not be discounted or denigrated simply because they are on opposite sides of the political spectrum. You know, I think we're going at cross purposes. Yes, I suppose they must highlight their accomplishments, but there is no question that the biggest accomplishments occurred under Labour, okay? To think otherwise would be revising history, essentially. But I was struck mostly by the introduction by Mr. Azad Gums, okay? Because he ran from essentially what was the elitist origins of his party, you know? I found it strange that he embraced this electricity thing. He pointed out that that was one of the things that jump-started the party. What happened there was that people were objecting to paying for floor space. That's what the demonstration was about. I can still remember the slogan, "We won't pay for floor space, we'll pay for what we burn." Well, who did that policy benefit? Most people those days had tiny houses. It was only the elites and the planter class who had large houses and would be forced to pay more. And I can't, for the life of me, up to this day, understand how the People's Action Movement got poor people to demonstrate with them when it was obviously against their interests, okay? Because this was obviously putting the burden of taxes on the broadest back, the rich, the big people with the large houses, okay? I know that PAM is mainstream now, but even now, saying things like PAM is for everybody is a problem, for it ignores the fact that our country is still fractured on the class and economic status or economic conditions lines, okay? Not as bad as before, but it still exists, okay? And so the philosophy of a party should really be determined or is determined by who it looks after most. And when it comes down to the crunch, it seems as if the PAM party reverts back to its right-wing origins, its elitist origins, okay? You see the complaints now, for instance, about how things like entertainment is viewed, right? The big parties and the big events, those can go ahead. But the smaller ones that involve the smaller man, okay, those, all kinds of they have to jump through all kinds of hoops to have their events, okay? And that is a clear indication of when it comes down to the crunch, right? It's not about supporting everybody. It's about supporting the people who supported them at the beginning. And one last point when it comes to the philosophy, the difference in philosophies between the parties. Okay? PAM found itself supporting the right-wing Reagan agenda, okay, and the Caribbean Democratic Union, which was formed to counter what was considered the Cuban and socialist type parties that were springing up. And we know that right-wing Reagan agenda was what contributed to the long stay of the apartheid regime in Africa. They opposed all liberation struggles, okay? And to have sided with them simply because of ideology, their ideology was more closely aligned to the right-wing agenda, is something that I thought was unforgivable, right? The socialist parties, like Labour parties generally, they supported the black liberation struggle. And our race, just by our race, we should have sided with them as well, not with no European or North American agenda, okay? So there's a fundamental difference between the parties still. Yes, all of them are practically mainstream now and have supporters among all classes of society. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, right, there's a clear distinction of who supports who, whose interests are supported above others, because there are still tensions in the society about resource sharing, who should get what, okay? And when we look at who's getting the lion's share, whether it be in the tourism market, where ships are now coming in, but it's the big firms who seem to be benefiting, and the ordinary person, the taxi drivers, those are the ones complaining. You see the difference, okay? You see the difference, and that is because of the ideological outlook, the political philosophy of the current governing parties, as opposed to what Labour has always stood for, which is the upliftment of the poorer classes. Okay, so I just thought I'd mention those two things. But like I said, all parties have contributed to the development, no question about it, and but it's just a matter of record that when it came to the transformational changes, the big items that made the biggest difference, like free secondary education for all, that transforms the whole country. When it came to like the transition from sugar to services, I mean, whoever heard of the CBI before it was revamped by the Labour government? Nobody heard of it. Nobody in the region followed that policy before it was revamped by the Labour government and it started raking in a lot of money. Nobody heard of it before. Okay? So we need to put things in perspective, give credit where credit is due, and then I think we'll be fine.
Well,
okay then.
Thank you, Carl, for your contribution. Thoughts?
It's interesting to hear him go right back to, as he called it, the nitty-gritties, back to the whole talk about elites that I've heard about. I don't know, Kevin, if you've ever heard of that situation.
I wouldn't consider myself a historian.
But I have heard of that. I have. And it's quite interesting to hear how in-depthly he spoke of that situation.
Indeed, indeed. The thing about it is, we could have a whole batting match about different mistakes and whatever from parties' perspective. Everybody has their own perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a call. Good afternoon, caller. You're live on Inside the News.
Good afternoon, Kaban. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and how are you?
Oh, you're giving God thanks, man.
All right.
Brought us to another week, you know?
Yes, he did.
That's enough to give God thanks for. And good afternoon to your other host, to your hostess.
Good afternoon, Miss Henry. Trust and hope that you're doing well.
Oh, yes, man, giving God thanks. And there is none so blind as him who will not see.
Okay.
None so blind as those who will not see. Now, I don't know if anybody knows who really started that Labour Party, you know. You have any idea?
You tell us.
Thomas Manchester?
Never heard of Thomas Manchester.
All right, I want the one call back on. He was a plantation owner. You hear?
Ah.
They like to talk about class. At what point did the poor class begin to rule? You had the Workers' League. Now, the gentleman was interested in the condition of the poor black people. So being of white, then Edgar Challenger, when you see government headquarters on the other side, I'm sure you see a picture on the wall there, was the first president of the St. Nevis Trade and Labor Union of Portuguese descent. There was the other man who used to run on the ticket, was a lawyer. I think he also became a judge. When you look at the members of the executive of the Workers' League, they were all middle class, maybe except one or two. So when people come and pitch in this story about, oh, you know, and this was by the elitists, who could be more elitist than those who started the Workers' League? But the thing was, what was the aim? The objective was to help to uplift black people. You understand? And there have been many people of different colors in this country.
There continue to be.
So when they come in a long speech, you see, the trouble is a lot of us, we don't investigate anything. We come and we regurgitate the party. Go for all the parties, you know. They regurgitate the story. But ask them the date. At what point did this happen? What was the result? You are the glowing thing. I dare anybody to tell me the difference between Palm and Labour. They come in, oh, you know the philosophy. Labour was supposed to be a socialist party. It was only socialist for those in charge. Because while they were taking away people's land, they were constructing massive houses and lands. The poor have always been poor, and as far as Labour concerned, they build their party on the back of the poor. So how do you maintain that? By keeping them poor and dependent. You have a massive housing scheme, but the pay is beyond the people's capacity. What have you done? You can tell me somebody working in the factory, you give them a house, for heaven's sake. They're working for a minimum. And NHC is asking them to pay nearly half or more of their income. I mean, really. And then the money was borrowed from Social Security because he says he don't know. And he talking about the schools, the condition. You see, when people are not aware of things and then they just wake up one morning, ask anybody from the village. The schools in St. Kitts were in deplorable condition. We moved into the old grammar school in 1958. At the time, the board and them then started to drop out. Floor dropping in. There was even the situation, and pictures abound. We're all into the 80s. It's had to be over the school. School falling in on children all to the island. And let me tell Mr. McMahon something. I noticed that they are crediting a lot of this stuff that was done under the colonial government to Mr. Bratcher. You must stop it. He might have agitated, but remember, they did not have access to power until 1957. You understand, Kevin?
I hear you.
It was the administrator and they were running the country. Even though they were elected, they were on the legislative council, where they actually had even more nominated members than them. They first put them on boards. I hear one of them say, Mr. Bratcher started the CHA. That's not true. It was started, I think, in 1948. And where I presently live, the housing project was done in 1949. Oh, Mr. Bratcher, I mean, he did well. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not discrediting him, but do not give to people what they did not do. And what about Mr. Southwell? Actually, a lot of this thing he talk about, it's actually Paul Southwell who did it. And this education. You hear a lot about, secondary education. Ask him what kind of education was going on down in Sandy Point and in the junior high school. They were passing children to the schools. The brightest ones went to Bassi High School. I taught Bassi High School. You did not go there until you were in third form, There was no first form in Bassi High School. And it was only the children who had gone to junior high who did the best in 2A1 to 4. Ended up in the Bastia High School, Thousands were left in the junior high school. So they went in, so they came out. I taught in Bastia High, so they went in, so they came out. So it is not a matter what you build. What was the quality of the education? Only those who managed, and even those who went to Bastia High School. If your parents are poor, you struggle because you couldn't even pay to write exam, you couldn't buy books. Not to mention the level of poverty. Because they don't talk about that, The level of poverty during the labor term, they say 32? From 32 to 80 is astounding. Massive. You're talking about high infant mortality rates. And they persisted for long because people were just poor and hungry if you're working in the sugarcane industry. And you barely, the little bit you're working for, can't even buy food. And you wonder why. You see, Paul Southwell, he wanted to end that sugar industry earlier, But this thing of having poor people to tread upon, poor people to march, poor people to, it's terrible. So when you hear them talking, ask them what condition the hospital was in. We now have CFBC, they had the old Cunningham Hospital. I went to Teachers College here in 71, 72, and came out 73. They had school in there, in the old building, with floorboard missing. You hear them talking? Ask them what was the condition up in the old Cunningham Hospital. And who gave them the hospital? When you hear them, and they need some photos. It was just terrible. And to say, oh, they laid the foundation, no lie. And they left it there. You know, you walk around, sometimes you see some foundation in bushes where people start to build houses and they can't go no further than the floor.
Yes.
You see some of them came on, right?
Yes, of course.
That's what they left. Of course they left the foundation. But it was in bushes. You know, and so to come and over the Reagan story, under the CBI thing, the factories came in, you know. Those factories up there and any factory that come in after that. The only socialists for the top. And look at their amass. Look at how the leaders amass great wealth. What kind of socialist is the Labour Party? Massive accumulation of wealth, rapid. And you're talking about, oh, you know, the policy and you're serious? It hasn't stopped. I tell people, you know, all the parties, look, between the two of them, they are the same. The two of them is center-right. They are center-right parties. The thing about, look at all the hotels. Who benefiting? Is the poor people? The poor people get jobs when they close the sugar industry. They say, oh, you know, we did things for the poor people. Some of the women say, wait, are we going to get to this makeup bed? They call that progress. You come out the cane field with your $100, your $100, so you're going cleaner into the hotel with the same 100. I mean, really, who get all the incentives? Walk around and see who get the incentives and who gave them. They reach so far. There's a socialist, right? There's a socialist that nearly all the small black people-owned businesses have been swallowed up by the Chinese that they brought in. I challenged Dr. Douglas about it. Because under the former government, you couldn't come in and do no retailing. They say, oh, the people are citizens. Well, all the citizens under the Socialist Party swallowing up the poor black people. They're building hotels with Chinese workers while the black people walking past the place. Socialist, you know.
Well, thank you, Sylvain. We're going to need
tell
to...
Mr. Thing, I said, please go and learn something. And he said he did not know about the CBI. How could you, an educated person, not know about it? You know all of those houses and things over Frigate Bay. They're there by the citizenship by investment. You had to put down something. You had to construct. You had to build something, hotel or home or something. He said nobody heard about it. I am sorry that you were not aware of what's going on in your country. And I tell you all again, when you come with these stories, please to call the date. You say you all build all these schools, tell me. Some of them built in the 40s, and some in the 50s. I am not denigrating your achievement. But please, when you call in these things, because I know, I have done research. I am not trying to pull down nobody's thing, but the facts are the facts. You must stop saying what is not true. Get your facts and come. And then say, well, we did, because the next thing you're going to hear, Pam might well come in thing, you're going to hear, oh, well, Unity ain't do nothing. And this thing about Downport Zante, let me get this straight. You see, those buildings Downport Zante, they're private. Labour did not build them. The people purchased the land and they put up the buildings. Because you say how Labour built Port Zante, Labour built Port Zante. Pam built it, and the one with the pier. You know, the pier got damaged through the hurricane, right? You know, they got insurance to build it back. They said, oh, you know, we had to get into, I hear one of them, we had to get into debt to build back. It has always been insured. And the deep water port he's talking about the pier up there where the cargo ships come in. That again was washed away in Hurricane David. They don't want the talking harbor story here. They built it, right? And soon after hurricane came and destroyed it, and the other government had to build it back. You ever hear them talking about they build, you ever hear Pam say they build the deep water port? They had to build it back the same way they built Port Zante and hurricane mash up the pier, you build it back. Please get your story straight and get the dates. I want all of you who praising up whether Pam or Labour get the dates. Because this country was modernized under Pam. And it had a service economy under Pam. I don't think some people understand what is a service economy. Telecommunication was modernized. People say you didn't even have a house phone. Not to even mention cell phone. They didn't come on the labor. Banking. I mean, the increase in the banks and things came under under PAM. Of course, thing was there. Give everybody credit. The labor started the thing bank. Let me get the Social Security while I'm at it. It started in 78, right? Mr. Bratter died 79. Mr. Bratter died 78, the same year he started. Southwell died 79, and PAM went in 80. From 80 to 95, you're going to tell me that is labor bail up there? I mean, don't be ridiculous. All of these scholarship and stuff came under PAM from Social Security. The benefits, a lot of the benefits, may not give a PAM, you know. But I am saying when it comes to labor people, I must bring the facts, bring the date, bring correct information, because there are people out here, you see the young people who listened to you a while ago, they believe a lot of what you're saying is not true. And for our people, learn to read and research. Otherwise, PAM going to give you the whole story, Labour going to give you the whole story, next thing, Unity going to give you the next story. And you don't know the difference because you don't read, you don't research. All right then.
Thank you, Sylvain. Well, like I said, the whole debate would open up a whole lot of back and forth.
That's true. That's the same thing I'm here thinking, come on.
A whole back and forth.
Who did what?
When they did it, who did it over.
Who did it best.
And it could go on and 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 on, because people are very passionate about either political parties or either history, etc., so forth and so on. But the caller before, Ms. Henry, he raised the issue with the tour operator situation, and that was the last thing that we wanted to speak about. So do you mind giving a little context to that situation?
Sure, I'm going to share a little bit about what happened over the past week and a half. And we saw that the tour operators have been very disgruntled about the situation there, expressing their frustration with the reduced bookings and the dispatch strategies at the Port Zante cruise port. At one point, they were planning a protest that was brewing in the air, that they would plan a protest if their voices weren't being heard. And we also had Socrates on here on Voices, who spoke about having a meeting with the tourism officials. That meeting happened. The Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Lindsey Grant, he confirmed that the meeting did occur and they got to some form of resolution.
Right.
And so did Socrates.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever resolution they have come to, it would be broadcasted officially to the public once, it's looked over. And
right. So I imagine whatever decision they're going to be making would probably be taken to cabinet probably on Monday, and be tabled and discussed and whatever comes out of it. But this isn't the first time that we've heard about this. It seems to be an ongoing problem where the taxi operators are speaking about unfair dispatching, unfair treatment throughout the restart of the cruise tourism sector in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it's an ongoing process of issues arising, it being taken care of, issue arising, it being taken care of. It's just that we have to then look at the longevity of those situations. But we have a caller. Caller, good afternoon. You're live on Inside the News. Caller?
Hello? Hello?
Yes. Can you turn on your...
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Cornelius.
It's Mr. Brown this
And your
afternoon.
co-host. I'm here listening to the program, and it's important that you raise that issue there, and it will be ongoing because over the years, the situation has festered to a point, like what we say a boiling or a tipping point. It's not, tourism is fluid. We must admit that tourism is fluid. Fluid from those who are coming in, the sectors that will come in and certain expectation would be have of them, what preparation our tourism authority on the ground would put in place, and also our tourism authority would put things in place, and that creates the fluidity of what I'm trying to say. And over the years, certain things has not been addressed in its entirety. So things are being done in a sort of piecemeal way. Instead of taking a whole folder to the fore, you will take one page, and then if this one thing has been resolved, something else which was not being addressed before, or something else that will be come on stream would need to be addressed. And so it is fluid. I don't think no time that the representative of the taxi association will go there will always have all of the wherewithal to go there. But as things progress, situation will arise. And because of this, like it was a backlog of issues, I might add that the taxi association representative, they might have something on the agenda that might be something real contentious, but there are other issues that they may not address. So if that one is being resolved here and then, there are other things that need to be addressed. And that is the situation. Like I said earlier in my interview, we are also to be blamed. I cannot rest all the blame on the tourism authorities. We ourselves are also to be blamed. But what I realized, though, is that nothing is a secret on these islands. And so the authorities will get to find out, there is a planned protest or a planned demonstration or whatsoever. And they will want to address it by trying to appease the relevant representative of the taxi association. I noticed that Minister Grant, he traveled and he came back and he was able to bring something to the fore, however little, minute it might be, by saying, the 1% of those who might have had COVID on a particular ship, we have negotiated that, so those ships will be able to come because the percentage of ships that will be turned back and on other cancellations for whatever reason, it is a takeaway from what was we down to the nation as a whole, be it me, the taxi man, or someone else who is into the business. So all of this is anytime there's something in the air, a planned protest, be assured that yes, by right, the tourism authority will have something to give, to appease or to pacify, so that to alleviate that, cancel that, and that goes on the back burner and so forth. So that is what I would take from all of this. But it's interesting to know that that's where we are. Other things are falling down. Other things are falling down in terms of certain restrictions, and we would hope that the authorities will look into that. And don't think that where our ears are not on the ground. Other things are falling down, and so everyone who comes into this business wants to apply their trade, so that at the end of the day they can go home to their families and and appease their families. So other things are coming to the fore in terms of what the science would say, in terms of other things. So we hope that everything, they're looking at the bigger picture and put measures in place so that we could come back to normalcy as soon as possible. Given what is at stake, we know that the 40% of the ship, and all of that, I am aware of it. I hope other taxi operators are aware of all this. I am aware of this. But there are other things that tourism can put in place so that we can come back to normalcy, because it has been a charmer on the nation.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, caller, for your contribution this afternoon. Yolanda, thoughts?
Yes, that caller is one of the persons we would have spoken to in trying to gather our information. And he has been very passionate. He keeps speaking about the situation. He has been quite vocal about it and really looking for something better. Several other taxi operators or tour operators that we spoke to, they are quite disgruntled. They're speaking about not being able to pay mortgages, looking after their families, stuff like that, just paying a simple bill. It's not easy. They keep saying it's not easy. Things are not going good.
I don't think there's anything that's easy about the situation, to be quite honest. I know people are holding hope for this returning to normalcy situation, but I don't think there is a return to what was. I think we have to look forward and figure out how to make things better than they were before. Instead of trying to return to what was, how can we make sure that what happened in the last 2 years can teach us how to not let ourselves end up in a similar situation in the future. So it shouldn't be a return to normal. It should be a going forward to a new situation, a new normal, whatever the case may be.
And hopefully the discussion would provide that.
Hopefully.
Yes.
We'll take this last caller before we take another break. We lost that caller. Caller, you can call back.
Kevin,
yes.
Sorry. Kevin is a lot of Kevin and Devon here. So one of the things that stood out to us, Kevin, when we spoke to the tour operators, would have been the whole idea that they were given numbers. Right? So if you got the number 99, you had to wait until then to get that job. And I think that was the major issue.
I think it was a major issue when it first started because it depended on how many ships came in, how many people came off the ship. Yep. We have a caller. Caller, good afternoon. You're live on Inside the News. You'll be our last caller for today. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Inside the News?
Yes, Inside the News.
Yes. What I would suggest, what is really needed, is an official account of our history. Because obviously, people are basically stating what they consider historical fact, colored by biases. And that, I think, it does a disservice to future generations. They should know, they should be given an accurate account of the history. Case in point is the mix-up between the CBI, as we know it, which is the Citizenship by Investment, with the CBI way back then, which was the Caribbean Basin Initiative, okay? That was started by Reagan, okay? And the frigate bay development, for instance, had absolutely nothing to do with the CBI, meaning the citizenship by investment. It was something, I think they called it the Alien Landholding License, that basically developed Frigate Bay, not the current CBI, okay? Things like the industrial estate. It's called the CAP Southwell Industrial Estate for a reason, okay? It was developed under him, okay? So when we talk about modernizing of St. Kitts, most of it did occur on the labor. And the crowning glory, you may talk all you want about poverty and so on, but we have developed to the point where we have one of the highest standards of living in the region, okay? And this didn't happen over the past 6 years. It was left like that in 2015, okay? We had the best growth rate, the best economy in the region. And that speaks to our success since independence of developing our country. We've had good, steady growth. So it happened under all administration. And all I'm saying is that we should not be denigrating any particular administration's efforts in this building of a modern St. Kitts. And all I'm saying, too, is that most of this is the contribution from the Labour Party. And an accurate account of our history would reveal that. When it comes to the philosophy, it doesn't matter who, the condition of who started the Labour Party, whether they were rich or poor or whatever. It was their philosophy and who they intended to support, that to uplift, that was important. And Labour parties generally are socialist and left-wing, okay? And the PAM party that formed the opposition at that time came out of the roots of the planter class, which were right-wing, okay, and anti-worker, right? That is where the philosophy came in, okay? It was not about the economic condition of the persons who started it, right? It was the philosophy of the working class versus then the planter class. That was the origins of both parties.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
Koala. Well, we have run out of time for this afternoon's Inside the News. But Lana, want to give any closing thoughts on our discussion? It was quite a full show from this morning to this afternoon, but you want to give any closing thoughts?
Yes, the closing would be that I had I would say, enjoyable session this morning with both the...
That's quite a diplomatic answer of you.
I know, right? I know why you said that. Just hearing the history of both the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party and the People's Action Movement. Mm-hmm. I like the back and forth, with who did what and, why.
I think both Ms. Henry and our last caller raised valid points. In that
right.
We need an actual account of what happened when.
Yes.
What happened, how, because memory isn't your favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
Memory isn't perfect, no matter how hard we try to hold on to memory. No matter how hard we try to hold on to facts, our brain can only hold so much.
So much.
So to go wholly based on memory, it's already a flawed ideology. So I think what the last caller said is we need an actual account of history, a truthful account of history, and it would take everybody from every single side to contribute to that history so that we can corroborate and figure out what is what.
And that can go on for generations to come. Exactly. Because my children and yours and their children, it is important that they know.
Absolutely. So thank you again for listening to Inside the News, joining us this afternoon on Inside the News for another edition on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, January 29th.
Yes.
We are 2 days out from the end of the first month of 2022, and it started off with a bang.
Running away already.
Ooh, running away already. And we hope you have an enjoyable rest of your Saturday, a great weekend, and I hope you are rested and ready to face or brave the coming week. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more from WINFM 98.9.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead.